More Americans are setting budgets than ever before, and more Americans are completely ignoring them. In 2026, 53% of people sat down and made a budget. That's up from 46% the year before. Financial advisors must be celebrating, right? Except almost half of those same people expect to spend more this year than they did last year. Not less, more. And it's not like they forgot about the budget they made 3 months ago. They remember it. They feel guilty about it. They just keep spending anyway. The advice we've been getting for decades, track your expenses, set limits, stick to the plan, turns out to be kind of useless for a huge chunk of the population. And nobody's really talking about why that is.
Kent Berridge is a neuroscientist at the University of Michigan,
And he spent years studying something most of us assume is one thing, but is actually two completely separate systems in your brain: wanting and liking. When you see something you might buy, a new jacket, a gadget, whatever, dopamine floods your brain. But that dopamine isn't making you happy. It's making you want. It's the anticipation, the craving, the pull toward the thing. Actually having the thing, that's a different system entirely. And here's the problem. The wanting system is way, way stronger than the liking system. Your brain is essentially designed to chase things more intensely than it's designed to enjoy them once you have them. Researchers at Stanford's Social Neuroscience Lab found something kind of alarming when they scanned people's brains during impulsive buying decisions. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking, planning, self-control, all that good stuff, it just goes quiet. Measurably reduced activity. The same neural circuits that light up during other reward-seeking behaviors take over, and the part of you that made that budget 3 weeks ago essentially loses the argument before it even starts. It's not a willpower problem. Your budget exists in one part of your brain, and the urge to buy exists in a completely different part that doesn't particularly care what promises you made to yourself on Sunday night.
So if budgets aren't working and brains are basically wired to want things, you'd think people would just give up, right? Well, they're doing something weirder. 71% of consumers in 2026 are still buying what they call little luxuries, small treats to cope with financial stress, even while 38% are cutting back on spending in other categories. They'll skip the expensive grocery items and compare prices obsessively, then turn around and buy a $6 coffee or a new candle or some random thing that just feels good in the moment. It's not irrational, actually. When everything feels expensive and stressful, those tiny dopamine hits become a kind of emotional maintenance. The budget says no, but your brain says, I need this to get through the day, and your brain usually wins.
Remember that wanting versus liking split? It explains something really strange about modern shopping. The best part is often before you buy the thing. Scrolling through options, imagining how it'll look, picturing yourself using it, that's when dopamine is highest. Once the package arrives and you open it, there's a brief moment of satisfaction, and then nothing. Or, well, sometimes mild regret. But you already know this because you've probably experienced it a dozen times. The problem is, knowing it doesn't stop it from happening again. Retailers and app designers absolutely understand this, by the way. The entire interface of online shopping is built to maximize that anticipation phase, to keep you in the wanting state as long as possible, because that's where your wallet opens.
In February 2026, Time published something that puts all of this in a different light. Buying new stuff drives 60% of greenhouse gas emissions. Every time you get that little jolt of happiness from a purchase, there's a carbon cost attached that most of us never see or think about. And the thing is, that jolt is real. It's not fake happiness, it's actual neurochemical reward. But it's also temporary, and it's tied to a production and consumption system that's kind of unsustainable at the scale we're doing it. This isn't about guilt-tripping anyone. It's just that the psychology of spending isn't just a personal finance issue anymore.
It's an environmental one. And the dopamine system in your brain doesn't have a category for climate impact when it's deciding whether to click buy now.
So if budgets don't work for half the population, what does? From what I can tell from the research, it's not about limiting yourself. It's about changing the environment that triggers the wanting system in the first place. Unsubscribe from marketing emails. Delete shopping apps from your phone. Make it harder to impulse buy by adding friction. Log out of saved payment methods. Set up purchase delays. Whatever makes the gap between wanting and buying just a little bit longer. Because in that gap, the prefrontal cortex sometimes wakes back up. Some people are also shifting to what they call values-based spending, where instead of a rigid budget, you decide what actually matters to you and let everything else fall away. It's less about discipline and more about designing your life so the wanting system doesn't get activated as often. The reason budgets fail isn't because people are bad with money or lack self-control. It's because a budget is a rational plan, and spending is often an emotional response driven by brain systems that don't speak the language of spreadsheets. You can't logic your way out of a dopamine loop. What you can do is recognize that your brain has two separate systems for wanting and liking, that the wanting system is stronger and faster, and that the entire economy is designed to exploit that gap. Once you see it, you can start making different choices, not through willpower alone, but by changing what you're exposed to and how you're exposed to it. If this changed how you think about your own spending, hit like. Subscribe if you want more of these. Thanks for watching.